What's up, Steve? They did put me on.
Okay, welcome back to Put You On Radio. I'm Steve. I'm here in Laguna Beach in the studio. I'm here with a very respected artist, touring DJ, global artist, incredible dance producer, classically trained jazz pianist, former DJ Mag Producer of the Year, the founder of the label Yes, 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 and the creator of the Femme House movement. I'm here with LP Giobbi.
Yay!
Thank
Thank
you.
you for saying my name right.
Yes, what do people usually say?
If I'm in Italy or Europe, they say Giobbi, it is Italian. It's how you say Giobbi. And it's very cool to hear an Italian say it. But in the US, I get Giobbi a lot. In fact, it's my mom's maiden name. And so I took it as my stage name as a way to, honor the matriarch. And I told her all excited. And she was like, her reaction was, "Oh, honey, nobody's going to pronounce it right." And she was correct. So thank you for saying it right.
That's good. I think I've heard your name plenty of times, so I think I can't take credit for the pronunciation. But like talking about your mom and everything, from Oregon, yeah.
Yes.
I'm from Seattle.
Very proud of the Pacific Northwest.
And how long did you grow up there and everything? Was that your whole life?
Yeah, born and raised until I went to UC Berkeley for school. But the big joke in my touring crew is that whenever I go anywhere that's beautiful, like I'll be in Croatia or Zurich or whatever, and I'll be like, "Doesn't this remind you of Oregon?" And they'll be like, "No, it doesn't." Come on.
Oregon's got some nature though.
Beautiful.
It's beautiful. People do sleep on the Northwest.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, right? Berkeley, the Northwest. The whole upbringing that you had getting into music, not exactly the most traditional route, I would say, right? Like typically I'm used to was like fell in love. Like my family was musical, which I'm sure yours was at some point.
No, actually, no.
No, but you were just, okay. Well, the reason I assumed
they're
is because
music appreciators.
Okay. But did they force you into piano and everything?
Okay, so in second grade, I went to my parents and I begged them for piano lessons. And they were like, "Are you sure?" And I essentially put together like a PowerPoint presentation. I mean, for a second grader, like I had like, I made a list of why I needed it and why I would be good at it and why I would practice and how I would practice. And they were like, "This kid's crazy." And they went and asked, their community for recommendations for piano teachers. And they got Carolyn Horn, who and so they reached out to her and she was like, "I don't really take anybody under fourth grade, but let me meet with her. Maybe I can find a recommendation for her." And so I knew in my little second grade head that it was like I needed to win her over.
Right.
And so I wore my best gesture hat and like mismatched socks and shoes and like just like the craziest outfit I could. Just like, I promise I'm just weird and different, and tried so hard to be so different, and walked into the room and our souls collided. And I mean, we just fell in love for that moment. And so she took me on and she taught me from second grade through graduating high school.
Wow. And then of course you obviously had some chops because you go to Berkeley to study jazz piano, right?
Yeah, I studied with Myra Melford, who's incredible. She's an experimental jazz player. Like she studied with Sun Ra, and so I was I was playing weird experimental jazz music.
That's insane. And so, am I right in continuing the story in hearing that a producer for Daft Punk put you and like some other jazz pianists into an electronic? What is this? What's
You're
going on
right.
here?
So I after I graduated from college with a degree in jazz piano performance, and was like, "What the F am I going to do with this degree? I need to get a job." I started working for another Planet Entertainment in the Bay Area, who does Outside Lands Music Festival and the Fox Theater, where I'll be playing in the fall, which is crazy, and the Greek and stuff. And so when I was working there, I on Saturday nights I would do a solo jazz concert at this Madrone Art Bar in San Francisco, which was next to the Independent, one of the venues that Another Planet had.
Of course.
So I would go and play for a few hours and then I would go to work. And Peter Franco, who's an engineer and producer for Daft Punk, was in the bar one night and approached me after my set and was like, "I'm putting together this all-female electronic band in Los Angeles and we'd love for you to join." And I I barely knew who Daft Punk was. Like I'd heard like maybe my friend liked one of their songs in college or something, but that's how far out of the loop of electronic music I was.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
That's awesome, though.
So let's just take that in.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, I don't think I'm qualified for this. Like, I don't even know what a synthesizer is. I don't even know how to turn one on. And he was like, no, we want people who have music theory backgrounds, and the if you know music theory, the electronic stuff will be easy for you. Luckily, ignorance is bliss, and I believed him. And I remember calling my dad and being like, this weird opportunity has come into my life. And my dad said, you know, Leah, you don't have golden handcuffs. You don't have a mortgage. You don't have a family to feed. This is your time to take these leaps.
Take risks.
Yeah.
Try
And
things.
so I leaped, and I moved to LA, and I spent the next few years in a garage learning sound design and synthesis with these other women who also had jazz backgrounds and didn't know the electronic side of things. And we learned together, and the very first synthesizers that I sound designed on were Moog Voyagers that were in the Pyramid Tour, the Daft Punk Pyramid Tour. And they had their like little, they had like actual notes on like when to turn knobs and stuff. And I started listening to them and realizing, wait, this is extremely wild and special to start your electronic journey.
Yeah,
here.
I was gonna say, right? Like you skipped a lot of steps.
I did. Yeah, it was a really steep learning curve for me. It was not easy as I was told.
Oh, no way.
And that I think was, it was like I started in Pro Tools, and then I was reading an article about how Grimes produced her own records, and that's sort of when I became obsessed about learning how to produce, move on from sound design, and I was working 7 synths on stage with the band that were all MIDI clocked. We didn't use any tracks. We were all synced to each other through MIDI wires, and so I really like dove headfirst into all of that. And from sound design, I got more interested in producing and sort of being visual representation for other women out there, because only 3% of producers are women. And that's where the journey started.
That's crazy. Okay. And so you're in LA.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, I'm learning like the craziest dance, electronic music stuff.
It's like weird synth sci-fi.
Okay.
Stuff.
Word.
Yeah.
That sounds accurate. So at what, and you're in LA, at what point are you like starting to meet people in the industry even? Like, is it fast or what? Like, how did, there's artists like that came up like Sophie Tucker that found you early, right? And you got put on by them. Like, how does somebody like that, what is that? Anybody listening to this who's like, oh, how do I meet people? Or like, what was your story about how you met some people?
That's such a good question. And it's like something we're actually trying to solve for at FemHouse is the what's next. We have this amazing army of women who are learning how to produce music and are making really good stuff. And the question I get asked the most isn't, what plugins are you using, or it's what, like, now what? And the exciting thing about that question is that, well, the challenging, horrible, and wonderful thing is that there's no one blueprint. There's actually a million blueprints. Yeah. So for me, oh my gosh, so I'm in this band, and, we're sort of like gigging at these tiny, dingy bars and clubs and learning together and having a blast. But we're tiny. Yeah. And my partner had started Snow Globe Music Festival, and Sophie Tucker had just released Drinky. And it was one of the first dance songs. In fact, I have like all my old notebooks of songwriting when I'm like writing songs for the band and stuff. And I was looking through them the other day, and at the top of one of the pages, I have like song references, and I'm usually like grabbing ideas from and stuff. Yeah. And one of the song references was Drinky, and this was like right after it came out, and I was just like, "What? This is before I met them and knew them." It's so crazy how the world works.
It's crazy.
Yeah, right. I was like, "Oh my gosh, they were a song reference for me."
Yeah, and you wrote it down, which I think is
manifestation, 100%.
That's right, exactly.
So, they were playing, they had just released Drinky, and it was like on SoundCloud, and that sort of blew up for them. And my partner booked them. They played at like 2 p.m. at the smallest stage at the festival. Cool. And they did an after party, and they had a DJ that was supposed to open, and that DJ ended up not showing up or something. And so he was like, "Hey, do you want to do this? And can you figure out how to?" I didn't know how to DJ. I had no idea. I was just like in this band playing synths. Yeah. And so, but I love this band so much. I was like, I'm gonna figure this out. And so I remember being in the cabin, like downloading record box and like I literally had a few hours to figure this out. And
Awesome.
and I show up and I play the worst set ever, truly. And the only person on the dance floor is my mother. and she was literally feeding me chicken nuggets because I was so hungry and there was nobody else there. And it was a moment. Shout out, Mom. It was a moment I remember thinking, is this my life? Like, what am I doing in my life? I'm such a loser. That's what I remember thinking. But I was wearing these crazy pants that I had like studded myself all the way up the side, and like they were just outrageous. And Soph and Tuck were apparently backstage listening, which is humiliating to think now, but they thought the song selection, they really liked the song selection. Maybe I wasn't a great
Mixer.
Yeah. But I had that part down.
Yeah.
And then they came to the booth and Tucker was like, I love your pants. And we had great energy together. We just, had a great conversation, and then they mixed it and went on. And I remember thinking, okay, that was maybe a weird life experience.
Yeah.
But a few days later, I got a DM from Tucker, and he's like, hey, we're doing our first US headline tour. Do you want to open up for us? And I literally was like, am I getting punked right now? Like, this can't.
But you took that risk to like, all right, I'm going to jump in and do this set even though I don't know how to DJ, right? So it pays to get out and do things that is against your comfort zone, but also just like outlandish things.
So my friend, she actually named this. She coined this for me because this is how I've been my entire life. She calls it what she has always said is, you're very tits first. You just leap into everything tits first. Like I remember we in San Francisco, I started throwing this like queer wild underground disco party, and I was like starting to listen to like Tornado Wallace and like I don't know, like very very underground music. And I was reading a book called Last Night DJ Saved My Life, and I was reading about the Warehouse and underground clubs like that in New York and Chicago.
Yeah.
The Loft, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to recreate that in San Francisco. And so I just sort of kind of started reaching out to agents. I made an email address, started reading just to make myself look legitimate, like bookings out, whatever.
Yeah.
And started reaching out to agents and like went and bought CDJs. And my friend was like, you're so tits first. And so I try to take that into everything I do in my life.
Well, I can tell, right? Because a lot of things going on, right? Like I was talking about in the intro, like that was like the longest intro I ever have given, right? So, I mean, even at this point, right? Cooking on like Animal Talk, right? So Animal Talk was with Tucker from Sophie Tucker. And is it her Mix-a-Lot as well?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So you're already like there's a lot of people who ask like, oh, how do I start and do something? It's like just doing a lot of things and failing it fast, I think is a lot.
Failing fast is something I did very well.
Right.
So I throwing everything against the wall, seeing what sticks. Yeah. I had at the same time I had seen the Defiant ones.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Have you?
I watched that like once a year probably.
It's so good. So I had watched that with my partner who started Snow Globe, and he was really influential in my life because this man had started Snow Globe when he was valeting cars in Denver. And he was like, why don't we do a winter? Like, why isn't there a winter music festival, around these parts? And the first artist that he booked, the agent was like, is backline included? And he was like, oh, sorry, I'm getting another call, and had to Google like, what is backline?
Yeah.
And you just
yes, that's what it takes.
And so that was very, when I first met him, I was like, whoa, you can just try a lot of these things. Like you don't have to have anybody teach you or hold your hand, or you don't have to like go to school for it, or no, you can just, and it's okay to fail.
Yes. So I mean, yeah, exactly. And like,
but so with Soph and Tuck,
yeah,
I went on their first tour with them in a minivan. It was the tour manager, the two of them, and me, literally driving in a minivan, playing 100-person shows at best. Like, because they were working, like they did Middle America. They didn't just hit the big markets, and they really built a fan base, which was really inspiring to see, and I think really smart in how they built their career. And so I was on this tour with them and really got to know them, and we started Animal Talk, and her Mix-a-Lot is my co-founder in Femme House. Yeah.
And she's like all over your catalog. So I think, speaking of catalog, I think at this point, right, what year is this all going on, by the way?
2018.
So that's when you first started releasing music as well.
Yes, it's my first dance tune, which is humiliating.
So, yeah. But it's good, right? And then the thing is, like, that's not like 10 years ago. That's 6 years ago, right?
That is so actually crazy to think.
That's insane, right? So whoa. I think we should play one of the first songs on your entire catalog.
Oh god.
So
what are you picking?
Okay, here we go. Perfect Fire.
Oh my god.
Okay.
I have not heard the name of that song in so long.
Sweet. So Let's play Perfect Fire. I mean, third song you ever released.
Yes.
Oh
my God.
Awesome song in my opinion. So let's
I am
play it for the
flashing
people.
back. Yes.
And while you flash back, we're gonna play Perfect Fire for the people. Put You On Radio. I'm here with LP Giobbi. This is sick. I'm Steve. Enjoy. Okay, so that's Perfect Fire. LP Giobbi, third track ever with her Mix-a-Lot and with Claire George. So tell me about this one. Like, what are some memories you have of this song? You know, I know it wasn't decades ago. Again,
God,
only 6 years ago.
It feels like decades. I feel like the outro of my
You've lived
album,
like 7 lives between those points.
The outro of my album Daughter is a Grateful Dead lyric. Mama, mama, many worlds I've gone since I first left home.
Mhm.
Because I feel like it has been literal decades, and that is
Yeah.
a trip that is only 6 years ago.
Yeah.
But I have such a vivid memory. So much, you know, when you first start something, there's just like ignorant bliss and like just it can go anywhere, and you're naive.
Yes.
And anyways, I very much had that feeling when I started making dance music. It was just so. I mean, I try for it to be, but there's so much more business involved now in my career, and so many. Yeah, has grown into a business.
Yeah.
And at that point, it was just purely for fun.
Yeah, and discovering like what does it sound like for me to make a song and like collaborate with people, right? Like
totally.
That's what the early
And
days
her
are
Mix-a-Lot is she's been my best friend for so long, for decades, and I had so many wonderful memories of sitting on her rooftop in Oakland, smoking cigs, drinking wine, just talking about life. And we were I had just made this makeshift studio in my house in LA, and in the closet I made a quote unquote recording vocal booth, and she's in there with like a disco ball cloth over her head, like getting the vibe, and a glass of whiskey in her hand, and writing and singing that song. And it was just so fun. Like I didn't really think about like how many streams is it gonna get on Spotify, and how it was like really just so fun.
Yeah, it was like discovering yourself at the like in real time, you know,
without pressure on anything.
So cool. But I'm glad that I picked that one, and that's so funny that that you were like, whoa, like flashback. And so like you said, right, the business side of things too. Like there's been such a long trajectory from then to now, and a lot of things you've been doing, right? But like getting the courage to not only get into music and start getting on stage and do things like that, but also like starting your own labels and your own companies within music, right? So like what kind of things were you thinking of when you were doing these things? Like was this the goal, like right away you discovered, all right, cool, actually I want to start releasing my own music, or like, oh, they're doing it so I want to do it? Like what goes through your mind when you're like trying to start a label in the music industry?
Totally.
You think?
Well, I was really, as we spoke about earlier, throwing a lot of things against the wall to see what stuck, and actually it turns out quite a few things stuck for me, and now I'm just like juggling and treading water to keep up with them,
right?
Which is truly a blessing, but also a bit much. I with Animal Talk, we wanted to start a platform. We as you build sort of as an artist, you make your own relationships and stuff, and Tucker had actually the head of electronic music at the time had moved in next door to him in Florida, and so they became friends. And so we just sort of felt like there's relationships that we've cultivated that we can leverage to support other artists that we believe in.
Yes,
which is what Animal and Sophie from Sophie Tucker, she's really supported how to tour in a healthy way, which could be a whole industry in and of itself, and a whole job in and of itself. She's really all about, actually, I know that it's, we're in dance music and people party, but we have to treat our bodies like athletes, professional athletes, because that is what we're doing.
It's funny you say that, because I'm not joking. We talked about this for like days. We were at Coachella and she was playing this after party, and we couldn't stop looking at her and be like, look how good of shape that Sophie's in. Like she looks like a straight up athlete up there. So this isn't just by chance.
This bee is the most.
I can't wait to tell my girl about this.
She inspires whenever I'm confronted with like a decision to make about health, I think, what would Sophie do? Because she only puts the most purest stuff inside of her body. She doesn't eat a lot of sugar. She is, making sure she's eating enough protein. She is making sure she's eating at the right times of the day. She is exercising in the right, perfect way. She has physical therapists. She does meditation. It's
working, because she is in such good shape. Like it was hilarious. That's so funny, because it was like a theme of that night. We're like, how is she? She looks like she's like jacked, and she looks like she's ripped. Like she looks ripped. So
yeah, I mean, she's
Wow.
so that's really where she's, I mean, I've called her, I can't tell you in how many airports, just sobbing like, I'm so exhausted, and her just being like really focusing on the mental health and physical health aspect
Definitely.
of touring, because I think that we do think like just party, you're a DJ, and that is just for longevity. It's really
Right.
not how you can approach it.
Yeah, totally. I think
So-
the faster you get ahead of it too, probably that's gonna treat
100%.
you later.
I mean, she's the one who got me on the Aura ring, so
Oh, hey.
shout out Aura ring.
Oh, shout out.
Shout out brand sponsorship, question mark.
Loading.
So, yeah. And then when I started Yes, I was, signed to Ninja Tune, and I'm obviously this is my second album release on Ninja.
Mhm.
And, my albums on Ninja are sort of more my outlet for for songs, for full songs with singers and top liners, and songs that maybe are more focused on not for the dance floor but for listening in your car, or the going on a walk or hiking in a forest or whatever. And I was in the middle of making the first album, and then I woke up in the middle of the night, freaked out, like no other DJ is going to play these songs. Like these are not really for the dance floor. The drum, I mean, I was recording live drums and like layering them with electronic drums, but it was very much more just for listening pleasure, not for the dance floor.
Got it.
So I freak out because I'm, starting to really find myself as a DJ, and they're not even songs I can DJ in my sets. And so I started Yes. I partnered with Defected Records, who based in the UK, and they have 25 years of global dance floor hits.
Oh yeah.
And they had just partnered with John Summit on his label, and I've seen what they were able to do with some of those underground tracks. And so I went to them and I said, if we do a partnership together, this is my outlet for the dance floor. This is not for streaming purposes. These are not going to be radio hits. Like this is really just songs I want to make for different moments of the dance floor experience.
Definitely. Cool.
And
That's
they were
awesome.
like, hell yeah.
Hell
and
yeah.
I was like,
I'm sure they were like, love that.
but like knowing that maybe they're not going to be like radio hits, like I wasn't sure if they were, yes.
But like they're a very tasteful label as well,
They
right?
really are,
So
yeah.
I mean, like,
and they have like live shows. I knew that I could like, again, a lot of the reason I want to do this is to support other artists, like knowing the power that's, Sophie Tucker, when they believed in me, and that gave me belief in myself. I wanted to always pay that forward. And so Yes is another outlet for that. And I knew that also we could funnel those artists into shows with Defected as they want to tour in Europe. And
cool.
So, and then obviously Femme House is
Yes.
the most important thing I do.
Yes.
It's the thing that gets me up every day and gets me on yet another airplane every other day. And that was started with her Mix-a-Lot. It really started during those late night whiskey drinking, hanging out sessions, talking about the music industry she came from. She was working on management for, oh my God, what is his name? Lenny Kravitz. And so we had met through the music industry because I was at another planet, and we just wanted to, we had a lot of conversations. She's a Black queer woman, and we had a lot of conversations about power and privilege and representation, and it's hard to be what you can't see. And so I really cared about starting Femme House and seeing more female producers represented, and having more female producers. I don't think that changes the world, but having anybody believe they can do anything, that does change the world. And that was just the outlet that we were using to do that. And I was told actually pretty early on, like, because I started Femme House right when I started LP Giobbi. And I was told, like, hey, you should just focus on one thing and build that. And then once you have a platform, then start Femme House.
Right.
And I just knew in my gut that Femme House would be the thing that got me up every day. It would be the thing that got me in the studio every day. It would be the thing that I care about probably more than LP Giobbi.
Yeah, cool.
And I just knew that they would build each other. And I knew that like me creating a community of like-minded folks would also help LP, and then vice versa.
Yeah,
and
it could definitely help LP too, right? Like, like the shows and like collaboration with other artists, like everything can that can come first as well, or at the same time.
And I'm really glad I listened to my gut, because there were so many people that told me that's too much, too soon, too quickly. And I think that was a big lesson for me. Like if your gut keeps yelling at you, listen to it.
And what were some of the first steps of Femme House? Was it like workshops, or was it just like
it was literally
collaborating?
Googling what is a 501c3? How do we start a nonprofit? You know, what is that? But it was, we really wanted it to. There are a lot of groups that, you know, do panels or about women supporting women, and those are so important. But we really, really wanted to actually be education driven. So we wanted to really have something tangible that you could walk away and have learned and do with. So we partnered with Ableton and started, we found an educator. I was volunteering at Girls Rock Camp, and they had just started an electronic program there, which is very cool. And I had met this amazing teacher. We were both teaching together. Her name is Lauren Kopp, Mini Bear. And Lauren is our full-time educator, and she does all of our free monthly workshops and online courses.
That's
and
great.
then we started partnering with Mary Drop-ins to do our DJ workshops. And so we do, every month we have a different workshop or course. And then for my headline tours, we do in-person workshops before every show. So the community can actually come together. They can meet each other. They can book each other on shows. They can collaborate. They can get in the studio.
I love that.
It's
the power of
like,
community is
it's so cool to see. You know, and I'm usually exhausted on these tours, but I go to these workshops and I meet these women, and I'm just like, man, I get so fueled. I can't even tell you.
100%. I feel that. Like, so yeah, like I love the Femme House thing. I love the yes. I love like these moves you're making, because I think I agree with you. I'm so with you. Your mindset of like, do it now. Like, don't wait, start now, and just try it. And like, who knows what will happen? So all these projects, it's really cool. I just love it.
And you just never know. Like, one thing will lead to another thing, which will lead to the path you're on now is probably going to become a completely different path. But just start.
Yes, start today. I love the saying. It's never too late to start. It's always too late to wait. That's one of my favorite things.
Oh, that is good.
So. A little nugget. No, but what I want to do now is
mood board.
Yeah. So speaking of yes, right? Celebrating like around the 1-year anniversary of the first release on yes.
Yes.
So that's a song by the name of Time Expands, right?
Yes.
So I actually look back. It was featured on my September 29th Music Club playlist, which is like, I haven't told you about my music club, but it's basically like a private community of people who I send playlists to every Friday. And it was actually on there, the first release. And I didn't, what are the odds?
No way.
Yeah. So we're going to play it right now on the show.
Amazing.
And then after that, talk a little bit about Daughter, the album, some of your music inspirations, and get into that. But until then, Time Expands, LP Giobbi. I'm Steve in Laguna Beach. Enjoy. Okay, that was Time Expands, yes, the label from LP Giobbi. I'm sitting here with her. And let's talk about a little bit, speaking of releases and albums and things that happen on those things, a lot collaborations, right? So not only collaborations, but people who I think you've been collaborating with have been inspirations of yours. And one thing that I read about you, which is really cool, is how big of fans your parents were of the Grateful Dead.
Great segue, man.
Okay.
It was very well done. Yes.
So tell me about that, because I feel like this had a big impact on your life.
I mean, the hugest impact on my life. So my parents weren't, as we spoke earlier, they weren't musical in the sense that they didn't play any instruments, but they are the biggest music lovers I know, because there is no bigger music lover than a Deadhead. I will tell you what, that community is the strongest, wildest, most intense community ever. You feel like you're part of this tiny niche. Like if you see somebody wearing a tie-dyed Grateful Dead shirt, you're like, oh, my people. But really, these people 50 years later can still sell 100,000 tickets in any market. Like they're the craziest, biggest, most unknown band ever. Like they've had one radio hit ever, and they have 50 years of being the craziest, most influential. I mean, they made counterculture. Like there is just no band like the Grateful Dead. There won't ever be a band again like the Grateful Dead. And their fans, there'll never be a fan base again like the Deadheads. And my parents I exist because of the Grateful Dead. My parents, they're high school sweethearts, but in college they followed the Grateful Dead around, as most Deadheads did.
I heard that's like a thing.
Oh yeah, like looking for a miracle outside, where they would hold up a finger looking for a ticket, a miracle, and the community would usually provide. And they play a 4-hour set where no set is the same, and so it's like they have songs, but then it's called a jam band because you jam on top of the chord structures or the songs, almost sort of similar to jazz, but in a rock in a rock way. And so there'll be 4+ hour sets where they just jam in between songs. Like they'll play like the chorus and the verse or the hook of the song, right? And then they'll literally jam for 20 to 30 to 45 minutes, and then they'll twinkle into the next song, and then they'll jam on that for, you know, that'll go into some crazy spiritual wild space,
and you're just
then
vibing
and you're the whole time. There's actually a section at each show called it's for the twirlers, and I would get up and show you, but it would be too crazy. They just twirl. Like you could go to a show and you could just watch the twirlers, and it's more like there's no real rhythm to it. They're just sort of moving their bodies in the way that like is spiritually touching them. It is an acid trip just going to the shows.
Yeah.
You could be totally sober and you could feel like you're on acid.
Oh my God.
So long story short, the craziest thing that's ever happened to me, long story long, is so I was raised by this community. And, you know, Jerry's voice, he's the lead singer of the Grateful Dead. He passed when I was very, very young. And my parents had promised me, like, the next time the Grateful Dead comes through town, we'll take you. Unfortunately, Jerry passed away. But there's obviously been iterations of the band that I've seen. The one of the drummers, 2 drummers in the band, but one of them, I remember when I was like 10, I went to see his project. And I have such vivid memories of just being really blown away by the music and being very moved by the music.
Sweet.
So, gosh, in the pandemic, I was streaming on Twitch, again, thinking, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
But here we are.
Yeah. And you're only 2 years in at this point.
Yes, I'm
during
only 2
COVID.
years. Exactly.
Dude, it's such a trip. It's a trip.
It's a trip. Like, why did I even keep going? I was looking at, you know, like, should I go back to school? Like, I just started really touring with Sophie Tucker. I didn't really have a big agent at the time. Like, and I was about to go on a big tour with them, and then, you know, the world closed, and I did think like, okay, I need to pivot with my life, but I'll just stream on Twitch for funsies. And at the time, so I started, you know, the same people would come back day after day. So in the same way that the Grateful Dead never played the same set twice, like I really had to get improvisational. And so I would take one CDJ and I would just put a drum loop on, and I would take another one, just put acapellas on. And I started keying all my tracks, so I knew what key everything was in. And then I would take an instrumental loop and I'd put on another CDJ, and then I would jam on the piano on top. And my parents started tuning in. And in order to make them smile, I would... My friend was working in a studio in LA, and he ended up with Mascolo actually ended up with some stems from a Grateful Dead session when he was working at Ryan Tedder's studio. And he's like, hey, aren't your parents like into the Grateful Dead? I was like, yeah. And he's like, I think I have some of their stems. I was like, dude, send them over.
Whoa.
So I get like the guitar stems, Jerry Garcia's guitar stems. So I put them into Ableton and I warped them and, you know, repitched them to fit them over different tracks I was playing, and like loop them and, you know, sort of jam with them. And my parents were like, oh my gosh, Jerry's guitar, this is so cool. And then Children of Deadheads started finding me.
And this is an actual organization, or you're just saying like...
No, like like my tribe, like,
got it,
who's the kids whose parents were also Deadheads.
I thought this sounds like a band almost. The Children of Deadheads or something. I was like, whoa, it's like some like
should
cult
we
movement?
start that project? The Children of Deadheads. It does sound like a cult, which it kind of is. So these kids, you know, who are ravers, but their parents were listening to the Grateful Dead. I started getting DMs from these kids like, oh my gosh, it's crazy to hear my parents' music in a way like this, you know? So this is insane. So I was asked to be on this live stream as a fundraiser for oh my gosh, it's called back. Wait, I have to think of this because it's important too. Okay, I can't remember. I was asked to be on a stream for another nonprofit, and Bob Weir is actually playing a set. This is during COVID on a Twitch stream as well.
I mean, sorry, who is he in Grateful Dead?
Oh, sorry. Yes. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
This is
great.
so sorry.
See, hey.
He is one of the remaining living members of the Grateful Dead, and he's the rhythm guitar player.
Cool.
So Bob Weir. So I'm like playing like 4 slots earlier than him on some Twitch stream, you know, and Bob Weir's manager is watching and I'm weaving in like a Jerry vocal and some guitars from the Dead over my set.
Oh, I gotta find a clip of this. This sounds tight.
He sends a friend of mine a DM like, who is this girl? Like, what is this? Is this some Grateful Dead stuff? And she reached out to me. She's like, Bob Weir's manager is watching the Twitch stream. I'm like, whoa, no way, what? And so Bob Weir's manager tells the now remaining members of the Grateful Dead, tells their manager, like, hey, there's this girl doing some like crossover stuff, some like raver girl doing some crossover stuff with the Dead. And so Trixie Garcia, Jerry Garcia's daughter, gets wind of this. And it's coming up on the 50th anniversary of Garcia's first solo album, the Garcia album, which have a lot of songs that the Grateful Dead played. And the estate that runs Garcia and Trixie reached out to me, sent me an email, hey, can we get on a call with you? So I'm like, is this really Trixie Garcia?
Are they mad?
Totally.
Yeah.
Are they mad? Am I about to be in trouble? Because like, that's fair.
Yeah.
And I get on a call and they're like, hey, it's the 50th anniversary of the Garcia's first album. Would you want to remix the project for an official remix? And I literally said, can I call you right back? Because I had to call my parents. And I was like, Mom and Dad, I'm on the other line. You will not blame. My mom drops to her knees and starts screaming like,
oh, I bet.
No, what? No.
What a crazy.
So I'm in the middle. This is right when the world opened back up and I really started touring quite a bit. And they're like, so you can do as many songs as you want. And I was like, I'm going to do the whole album. Because what a privilege.
Right.
Like what
I'm not skipping any of this.
I'm going to go all in. I don't care what. I will not sleep. We'll figure this out.
Oh, yeah.
And so I deliver it, and they were happy about it. And the remaining members of the Grateful Dead, Deadhead, were putting on a festival in Mexico. And they asked me if I would want to come down and perform at the festival. And they're like, they reached out and they said, we'd love to have you on the festival. You'll be the first DJ that we've ever booked.
Yeah.
And, we know your parents are deadheads and we'd love to take care of them and make sure that they, have the best seats in the house and we'll take care of their housing and, whatever. So my parents are like literally. And then once we get down there, they're like, also, do your parents want to meet Bob Weir?
Wow.
Okay, so
you're like, Mom and Dad, it gets better. It gets better. No, it gets better.
Okay. So Bob, this is like, these people are gods in my house. I can't even begin to explain to you how incredibly important this band is to our family. And
wow, this
was in the middle of the second night of their festival set. The manager's like, okay, it was during set break. And they're like, okay, if you want to bring your parents back, now is the time. And I remember thinking, gosh, I'm a tiny, tiny artist. And like, when I'm about to play or after I'm playing or having to interact with fans is like maybe not the first thing you want to do. And I'm like this big. Mm-hmm. And this guy's been doing this for 50 years and the Deadheads are the craziest fan base ever. So I'm thinking in my head, like, do I really want to bug him right now? But then I was like, screw it. These are my parents and they're my favorite people on the planet. I'm going to do it.
We're here.
So I go in and I'm like, Mr. Weir, like, first of all, thanks for having me on the festival. And also I want to introduce you to my parents. And my mom says, thank you so much for all the years of joy you've given my family. And he puts his hand on his heart and he looks her straight in the eye and he goes, the pleasure is all mine. And then he holds her hand for like a few minutes and they just like looked at each other's eyes and like hugged. And then then they parted ways. And it was just seeing the way after 50 years that he still like held space for her, yet another fan,
Oh yeah.
And and how life-changing that was for her to like meet a hero and have him be so kind. And it was incredible.
You're like, this is the peak of my life. Like, what else can I do now? Like, that's it.
Like, should we retire?
Yeah.
Because the remix album came out the day that I played the O2 Arena in London with Pete Tong with the full orchestra while I played the grand piano to a song I wrote with Pete Tong. I'm just like, should I retire now? I mean, there's still so much to do,
so
but
awesome.
it was wild.
Go to Mom and Dad. That's a great memory for them.
I know, right?
Wow.
I mean, my brother calls me and he's like, well, now it's official.
You're the
favorite kid.
Yeah, he's like, Mom, I won the lottery and put your name down. She's like, cool, don't care. I met Weir. Yeah. Wow, that's so cool. Well, okay, so we got to play one of the songs.
Yes, okay,
we
great.
have to. Yeah,
okay,
which one
I
should we
play.
choose?
Yes. I want to play Deal, which is So this is like my favorite track to play out from the remix album. And there's these like hit. My parents don't really come to a show. They ride the rail. They're in the front row no matter what. Like they don't want to be side stage. They want to be as close to like the biggest speakers as possible.
Cool.
And my mom, there's like these like hits that happen before the song, these like kicks that happen, and she always look out in the audience, and I see her going bum, 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 to the hits, and it's like it's just like ingrained in my head as the cutest thing ever. And then when the drop hits, I have Jerry's guitar just like going over the top, and without fail, every time my mom, she's 71 years old, and she is headbanging and jumping up and down, and she is like thrashing her arms, and it is like, it's my favorite thing ever. So I love Deal because I love imagining my mom dancing to it.
Wow. So Deal.
Yeah.
All right. Deal, LP Giobbi, Jerry
Jerry
Garcia, official remix, peak life stuff for you.
Yeah.
All right. Enjoy. Let's listen to it right now on the show. I'm Steve. Later. Okay. So Jerry Garcia,
Yes.
LP Giobbi. What a life peak moment for you right there.
Even just like seeing those names next to each other is so
Yeah.
crazy to me.
What a crazy thing. Oh, yeah, I'm just like, I can't stop thinking about your parents and how proud they were. So collaboration, obviously hard to beat that one, right? But there's been a couple good ones, right?
Yes.
You've had a sweet run of collabs in your in
Might
your
you
career.
say bittersweet?
Yeah. so we got Dom Dalla, we got
Yes.
MK,
Oh,
we
yeah, I
got
forgot
Walker and
about that one.
Royce, Ben Kim, Farrick Dawn, like
I forgot about most of these. Let's go.
like we're bringing it back. So like how important is collaboration for you anyways, right? Like any tips that you have how
Yeah.
you should think about collaboration
Yeah.
for anybody who's coming up, if there's somebody listening, like what is your whole mind space about collaboration
Yes.
stuff?
Great question. I think collaborations are all about yes and. So I think when you get in the studio with somebody, anybody, doesn't matter what level they're at, who they are, and even if you're sending tracks back and forth, I think the concept of yes and is really important.
Yeah,
not
explain that
shooting-
more.
Yeah, not shooting down any idea right away. If somebody, like creating a safe space and a safe space in your studio and in your environment to make an artist want to be safe and to open up and to try new things. And
Yeah.
so when you say yes and, it's like they throw out something instead of being like, no, I don't really like that. Just go with it and see where it goes, because one idea might lead to the next idea that you do really like.
Yes.
So always
Cool.
just like opening up space for yes and.
Cool.
And also putting yourself out there. Like with Portugal the Man, I had a friend of a friend knew the manager, and I was just like, they are my dream collaboration. And so I just hit that friend to, I hounded them for a contact, and I just like blank emailed the manager. Like, if I know that they're not in the dance world, but if they ever want a remix, like let me just maybe get in through a remix angle. And then, we ended up working together down the line.
I mean, and the
through
resume
remix.
was looking good already for non-dance acts collaborating, right? I mean,
so for me, that was really important. Is when I first started working with my publisher and my label, I was pretty explicit, and I don't necessarily want like EDM top line sent to me. I really want to work with artists outside of the dance world, like
nice.
with Jacob Banks or with Danielle Ponder or with Brittany Howard from Alabama Shakes. Like, I really enjoy the process of working with artists outside the dance world, because really I'm an artist outside the dance world. I just sort of tripped and fell into this world, which I love. But it's those artists who are maybe more like full songwriters, like they really bring something different to the table, and transforming that into a dance lane is just really enjoyable for me.
That sounds sick. So like some of these, like, are there any fun stories about any of these collabs? Like anything that's happened, like Dom Dalla or MK, any of the ones that any that come to mind, even that I didn't name?
The Dom Dalla one was actually so boundary pushing for me, or it just really made me a better artist, because I remember Pete Tong calls me and he's like, I really want you to do a remix for Dom Dalla. And he sent me the track, and it was Pump the Brakes. And, Dom Dalla is very much tech house artist. It's like, it was his vocal just like talking. And when you do a remix, I mean, at least how I interact with the remix is I take the vocals, and maybe if there's like a piano or like a guitar or something, maybe I'll take one instrument part, but I usually just take the vocals and I throw everything else away and then build the track around the vocals.
Right.
But with Pump the Brakes, the vocal was a like 5-second talking vocal. So I'm like, what should I do? And I was really kind of struggling at first, but I was like, Pete Tong asked me to do this, and like I don't want to disappoint him. And also Dom Dalla is so sick. And so I ended up, I honestly don't even know how I got here, but I took his vocal and then I duplicated it 5 times. And then I repitched. I just like made a chord out of his voice. So like, you know, I
Sick.
kept the first one as it was, and then I pitched the next one a third above, and the next one a third above, and the next one a third above. So it like made like a 7th chord essentially. And then it was just like sort of more like I made it sound a little bit robotic. And then I ended up, so then that gave me like the base for like something more beautiful, I guess. So that like really pushed me as an artist to like, how do I come up with something creative around this?
Cool. And for that moment, right? Like, had you been saying yes to a lot of collaborations? Are you a person that says yeah, like you'll try anything, or are you very selective? Like, what is that?
Yeah, good question. I mean, at this time I was I think I had like 20,000 monthly listeners maybe on Spotify, you know, and I had just signed with William Morris, and Pete Tong is the head of the electronic department there, and so that's why he was like, okay, I'm gonna try to help this artist, and like I'm gonna say yes to everything at this point. And obviously Dom Dalla was a huge artist. He had just released that San Francisco disco track that was blowing up, and and Tech House was, you know, I was just starting to hear that for the first time, like, whoa, what is this? So I think that honestly, the only restriction I have now is just my bandwidth and my time. There's artists like MFN that I really want to collaborate with, and like as soon as my space opens up, I can't wait for that.
I'm telling you,
he's amazing.
He's great.
I mean, it's actually wild to think now, like the ideas and tracks that do get sent to me and the demos that are amazing, that like 3 years ago I would have had more time and space and like been freaking out about. Now I'm just like treading water trying to keep up. But I really, it's just bandwidth. I think that I don't care how big you are, how small you are. If the song is good, I want to work on it.
That's great. That's good. And from this point in your career, right? All the people we've talked about that you've collaborated with, is who left is like on like a manifestation board.
Yes, yeah.
Would you say where you're like, ugh, like, you know, does it surprise me? Does it not? Who is that person for you?
Yeah, I mean, how was it after the Taylor Swift remix? That was the first time I was like, maybe anything is possible.
I think anything at this point is possible.
That call was like, and then she tagged me when she posted about it. Like that was it made me. So this might sound crazy, but you know, screw it, I'm gonna throw it out. The artist that I really, really want to collaborate with is Patti Smith.
Put me on a Patti Smith. Who's Patti Smith? Wait, I was like, Patti Smith. I gotta reach for that one.
Patti Smith is, I mean, she like comes up around the same time as Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin,
okay.
So she's literally like in the Chelsea Hotel writing music with them when they are all coming up. She is a rock and roll.
I've seen a cool documentary incorporating that, but yeah,
I'm sure she's Patti Smith, Patti Smith. She's just like the most badass icon, rock and roll goddess. And so I actually have this poem. She has this poem that I have a recording of her just speaking it. The people have the power. And it's this amazing poem. And then she ends with like repeating, the people have the power, the people have the power. And I wrote a track for the, you know, I made a bed of music for the poem.
Awesome.
And I end a lot of my sets with it. And I just then I take the music out. I just have her voice repeating that people have the power.
Oof.
And, you know, I'll be touring during the election. So I'm going to be playing that one a lot.
The people have it. Yeah, 100%. Wow, Patti Smith would be insane. I mean, hey, at this point,
it would be and I've tried. I've DM'd her.
Right.
I've DM'd her daughter. I have had my managers have reached out to her managers. My agents have reached out to her. I mean, I've tried every angle, but she's probably like, I don't give an F about this tiny dance artist, but I am still manifesting it.
I think at this point, like you said, anything is possible. I mean, like the Taylor Swift thing, right? That's crazy.
And she Taylor Swift and her did something together, you know?
Oh,
and so
no way.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, check out this one I did with my friend. You know, her name is Taylor.
Yeah. Have you heard Taylor? Please work with me.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, cool. So, I mean, insane. Just, I think that we got to make that happen somehow, right?
I hope so, yeah.
So you have an album and like, I'll restart that. So you mentioned earlier bands that you are in love with. Portugal the Man, one of the features on the album is Shakes, another feature on the album. Like let's talk about also not just collaborations of your past, but collaborations coming up for you. And there's a project that you have out now called Daughter.
Yes.
So wait, I said it coming up. Okay.
Well, yeah,
It's technically out in this context. Okay.
You can say how.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the artists like Portugal the Man. You mentioned the Alabama Shakes. So these are artists that are popping up on Daughter, the album that you
Yes.
released, right? So tell me, let's get into album talk now.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
We've kind of
gosh.
set the stage. We've talked about a lot of what you've been going through in your career, right?
Yeah.
Now you have an album coming out. Now you have an album out.
Yes.
And the feature list is really cool. So
Thank you.
obviously the Grateful Dead was a huge influence on you, but I think I saw a quote saying that your favorite band is Portugal the Man.
Yeah, my favorite band is Portugal the Man, and that is so. Sometimes I'm on an airplane and this is like kind of embarrassing, like listening to your own music. It's like wearing your own merch, which I do all the time, but usually because it's the only clean shirt I have on tour. But I sometimes will put on our collaboration and just like sit on an airplane looking out the window, thinking, "Holy shit, I can't believe this happened." They are
so cool.
When I was working at Another Planet Entertainment in the Bay Area, I remember what I was wearing. I remember what it smelled like. My boss called me into his office, and at first I thought I was in trouble. And he was like, "Hey, actually, there's this new album from this band Portugal the Man. It's called In the Mountain in the Clouds. This is 2012." And he's like, "I think that you're gonna love it." And they're about to play the Fox Theater, and so you're gonna be marketing the show. And I just like, here's the album. It hasn't come out yet. I'll send you a link to listen. I put on the album and I walked home from work, and it changed my life.
Oof.
And I still, whenever I'm taking off on an airplane or landing on an airplane, it's the album that I listen to.
Cool.
From top to bottom. It is, man, the amount of like late night dance parties in my house with my fiance just like playing air guitar to this album and just like rocking out. I can't even tell you.
I love that.
So when I ended up getting put in touch with their manager, just essentially begging to do a remix, and they agreed. And so I delivered actually 2 remixes for the song that they asked me to remix, because I just wanted to make sure that it would get accepted. And I went 2 totally different directions. And then they were like, "Actually, let's release both." And I was like, sick. Oh. And so the week that it was released, I was playing in Chicago, and they also happened to be playing in Chicago on tour with Alt J. Cool. And so they invited me to the show, and since they're a band, they play earlier than I do as a DJ. And so I went to the show, and then they ended up coming to my show, and in between we hung out on their tour bus, and I got to, you don't always want to meet your heroes. You never know. Yeah, you never know. Like they're not all going to be like Bob Weir, hand on their heart. Yeah. And so I was kind of nervous, like, please let them be cool. Yeah. And they were incredible.
I bet. That's not surprising me.
I mean, the coolest thing that seeing them do, almost similarly to Bob Weir, is there are fans like, coming on the bus and just like going on, like thanking them and sort of like praising them and like putting them on this pedestal. And every time they cut the pedestal in half and they figure out a way to like put themselves on an even playing field with the fan, they immediately like flip the script and ask them like a question about the fan, or brought up something relatable. They could both just like talk about like a superhero or something. It was remarkable to see. Like, it wasn't just like thank you. They like really were able to just like flip it and have really cool conversations with people that they were meeting, and that was really inspiring to me. I
mean, I'm sure you're cool too, though. I'm sure I got I get the vibe that when you meet people, like, this is a pretty cool experience.
Well, they taught me a lot about how to do that, and just how to have cool conversations in that kind of space when there's like a weird sort of power dynamic. Obviously, like, they're way bigger than me, but it was just like it was a cool thing to watch. But I got to talk to them about In the Mountain in the Clouds, and I got to talk to them about my favorite album, and that was so crazy. And so
cool.
John Gurley, the lead singer, and I, we really bonded, and he sent me like a few weeks later. He's like, "Hey, if you do ever want to work," he also is like very much a yes and. Like, if he vibes with somebody, he doesn't care the level they're at. They're like, he's just really like, let's create together, let's work together. He's like that with everybody he meets. Like, he's so inspiring. And so he sent me some songs that ended up not getting on their last album, and one of them was Bittersweet.
Wow. Okay. So you were like,
I was like,
I have a home for this.
First of all, how did this not get on the album?
Right.
This song is incredible.
Yeah,
and so
good.
first I just like I didn't want to, like, Portugal the Man is like my god, and so I I just produced out what they had already written. And I sent it to him and he was like, this isn't a dance tune. You're a dance artist. And I was like, oh, I didn't understand the assignment. Okay, got it. So then I went and made an LP version of it. And, that is what you hear on the album. And it's just a pinch me moment.
100%. I mean, like for them, and is this track, is this something that, no. Okay, well, maybe we should play Bittersweet this moment. I feel like this is the right time to play it.
Ugh, I know. I really did. I feel like you could end with Carolyn instead of.
No, we can come back to Bittersweet. I can.
Okay, because I can go to Is This Love because I have a great story for how that was written.
Wait, I was gonna ask this.
Oh yeah.
So you make Bittersweet. Is this made for the album? Is it before you made the album? Did you fit it into the album? Like, where was this on like the chronological order of when the Daughter album was finished? And everything?
Great question, man. Okay, so let me think. I was on the road 300 days last year, and I released Light Places in May of last year. So I'm a year and a half before this one. So I was just writing all the time. I write a lot on airplanes. Like, I don't know if I want to save money, not spend money on Wi-Fi, that I'm like, I guess I have to write music because I'm not going to email, which is great. And so I guess I'm always in the process of creating. And then when I really start thinking about making an album, I sort of gather like what are the songs that sort of make sense in this world, that can be in the same world, and then I'll sort of pick a few synths that I can sort of weave throughout all those songs and layer them with similar drums to like sort of kind of bring them all together. But really, how I tell the story of an album is through the interludes.
Got it.
Through like the intro,
which are awesome, and they're very prevalent on this project specifically as well.
Yeah, or else it's like that to me is the album. That's where the name comes from. That's where like the concept comes from, and like all the songs sprinkled throughout, although I want them to be in the same world, they're made to just be good songs out in the world, and the album is made through the interludes.
That's really cool. No, I love that. And so the album, right, so it's a collection of, I think, emotional moments for you, right? So
really intense moments for me.
So obviously I think that you can tell a lot by an artist's life by the albums, like you're saying, that they put out, right? So tell us a little bit about why this came about, how this came about, and what it means to you.
So as we've talked about, my parents are very important to me, and I actually when I wrote Time Expands, it was when I was on an ayahuasca journey.
Oh wow.
And I
love that. Hell yeah.
And in that journey, actually, I had a lot of stuff come up about like my parents' death at some point, and realizing like if all goes right in the world, I will live past them, and how painful that was for me to process on that journey. And so I really wanted to give them their flowers while they can accept them. Yeah. And I used to write little love notes for my parents and like leave them unhidden under their pillows. And I'm still the world's worst speller to this day. And so I thought you spelled daughter DOTR.
Cute.
And so they thought that was so cute. And they still, like, when they write me a card or like a Christmas present, whatever, they still like to daughter.
Oh, I love
that. A lot of this album was like about me processing who I am in the world, and that lens for me is really strongly revealed through being a daughter to them, and like paying homage to them and what they've given me, the piano lessons that they paid for my whole life, and like being in the front row at everything. And one of the interludes is my dad. So when I was a late bloomer, and him and I was in like 17 years old, and we were at a Bob Dylan concert, and Bob Dylan played Just Like a Woman. And then I went to the bathroom and I got my first period. And because I was such a late bloomer, it was like, it was a relief. Like I was like, you guys, I came out and I was like, I got my period. We're like all celebrating together. And I was hugging me
at the concert.
And yes,
that's
totally.
awesome.
Yeah, totally. And so he went home and he wrote a poem, using the words of Just Like a Woman, and tying that in with watching his daughter become a woman for the first time. And just like the older I get, the more I realize just what a profound effect that it had on me, that he was embracing me immediately, of becoming a woman, that was never shamed, that was never like a gross thing, and what that had on my confidence as a person. And so I really wanted to put that in one of the interludes. So I had him record himself speaking the poem. And then I had within 3 months last year in, let's see, was it like March, April, and May of last year? So 1 month apart, 3 of the most important women in my life passed away. And like the outro of the album is "Mama, Mama, many worlds I've gone since I first left home," which is a Grateful Dead lyric.
Love that.
And I felt like this pretty heavy stuff happened, and I was in a washing machine, like not really processing a lot of it, a lot of the grief that I needed to process. And so sitting down to write this album was me doing a lot of that.
I love that.
And I did that through like dedicating a interlude to each of these women. So my fiance's mom, I've been with him for 12 years. So she is definitely a second mom to me.
Totally.
And the last voicemail I have from her is she called me on my birthday to wish me a happy birthday. And that same birthday, Sophie from Sophie Tucker wrote me a poem with her wishes for me for that year, which were to slow down and to reflect and to like take in my life more, because I sort of was just always doing instead of being. And so I used, that birthday voicemail with the birthday poem, and that's the intro to the album of me trying to process who I am,
That's awesome. I would love to play that one right now.
Yes.
Yeah, let's play this first intro, which is technically the first interlude, even though it's the beginning of the project.
Yes.
That's a really cool story, and I would love to listen to that now, knowing that context.
Perfect.
So let's play intro.
Awesome.
Is it called intro?
Yeah.
Intro,
intro.
Patricia.
Because Patricia Lynn is my fiance's mom's name.
Okay. So let's play intro, Patricia Lynn, the first track on the project, Daughter. Such cool context, and I can't wait to listen to the project now, knowing all that. So here it is, the first one on the project, intro, Patricia Lynn. I'm Steve, here with LP. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's the first track on Daughter from LP Giobbi. Intro, Patricia Lynn. So like you were talking about, right? These interludes, and I agree with you, they really tell the story of an album, right? There's so many times where there's a lot of albums I can even think of at the top of my head, like Good Kid, Mad City by Kendrick Lamar. There's a lot of interludes there that talk about things, and then they go into tracks, and it really feels like a real concept album, right? So another example is our albums like this and projects like this. So the interludes, like you said, is a big theme on this. Now there's another one there's another interlude on here as well. It's called Carolyn.
Yeah.
So
Oof.
we talked about the interlude is called Carolyn Horn. So we talked about it earlier. You mentioned it, that she was your piano teacher, and obviously how piano is such a big staple in not only your career right now, but just your life, right? Talk about your parents and how they got you through, piano lessons and everything. So this is obviously a big one.
Yeah.
So I'd love to talk about this one in particular, and like just give us some touch points on what this one means to you as well.
Great. I mean, Carolyn Horn is the reason I'm sitting in front of you. She is like, she's definitely the most influential person in my life. I'm never going to talk about her without crying. I mean, I remember when I had first entered her studio in second grade, and every single Monday thereafter, all the way through graduating, and then anytime I would come home from college or come home for a vacation, she's one of the first people I would go see.
Definitely.
So in middle school, when I kind of started getting maybe bored of practicing and like wanted to flirt with boys more or whatever.
Yeah.
What she did is she cultivated creativity above everything else. Like, yes, I had to learn my skills, and yes, I had to practice. But really what she did was she just, she taught me how to deeply love music and how to deeply listen to music. And there are days that we would just play the inside of the piano, or we'd just play the bongos, or we would just dance to music that we would listen to, or we would just talk about life and music that has, influenced her. And she had this laugh that was just like bigger than life. And I'm so grateful that I had the wherewithal to, the last time we were together, I just took out my phone and I, opened the recorder and I hit record while we were talking and playing. And she had a Busendorfer piano in her house, which she actually ended up she built a room around because she couldn't fit it through her house.
Oh, cool.
It was like one of 4 in North America at the time that she had it. It's a concert grand, incredible piano. And she willed it to me. She left it for me in her will.
Oh, cool.
And she also She had her body cremated, and she gave me some of the ashes so that when I missed her and I wanted to talk to her, I could sprinkle them in the piano and play it.
Cute.
And so we actually, me and my fiance, built our house in Austin and designed the living room so it could fit this piano.
Yeah.
And it was a process.
Can imagine
getting
things
it
big.
there.
Yeah.
So the intro that you hear to Carolyn and the track Carolyn were recorded on the Busendorfer piano that I grew up playing during her piano lessons. And so I was in the studio the day that I got the phone call from her friend that she had passed. She had Alzheimer's, which is one hell of a disease.
Oh yeah.
And she called me and she let me know that she had passed. And I remember just breaking down on the floor and not, I was in there to finish some remixes or whatever. Who cares at this point? And I sort of lifted myself off the floor and I thought, okay, I just need to make something for her. And it's the first time I've made a song in a major key.
Cool.
Because
she
was a major woman.
Okay, great.
Most of dance music is for some reason in minor keys. And the Portola Man track is actually in a major because John wrote the top line in major. And I remember being like, this is difficult to work with. And so when I wrote Carolyn, I knew I needed it to be in a major key. And I dug through my computer and I found the recording I had of her voice, and you can hear her cackling at the beginning and talking about creating and talking about improvising. And man, the whole time I wrote that song, I wrote it, the body of it within a few hours, and I could barely see the computer screen. I was crying so hard.
Yeah.
But it was like, grief is so closely related to joy. I think they're like such intense feelings that you can't have one without the other, but also like they just when you're grieving, it's like you're also aware of your capacity to feel. And so I just like felt like this weird like euphoria as I was making it too. And I just, man, talking about giving somebody their flowers, I wish that she was alive, to see this project. I know she'd be standing side stage and howling. She never got to see the electronic music stuff because she had Alzheimer's by then. But there are moments when I'm playing in a set when like I am in flow and like I'm actually able to move my fingers how I want on the piano, and she oftentimes does come to me, like I can feel her spirit.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And it's so true. Like it's such an obvious example of the impact because we have interlude Carolyn Horn and then goes right into Carolyn, right? And it's a seamless transition from the two, and so really cool. And yeah, so this one, yeah, really special for you.
And the interlude is part of the Grieg Piano Concerto, which is a 26-page piece that her and I learned, that she taught me through 4 years. I started it freshman year of high school, and I played it with the orchestra my senior year during my senior recital.
Wow.
It took me 4 years to learn this piece.
Wow.
And she, never let me give up, even though I wanted to. And she was diligent and kind. And, learning that piece like really made me feel like I can do anything. And she always like just the power of a really good teacher and educator and somebody who was not my parents, who reflected this mirror back to me like, you can do anything and you are powerful. And I mean, more than just teaching me the piano, she did that. And what an important gift.
100%. So shout out to you for wanting to learn piano. Shout out to her for taking the young girl in, who was younger than 4th grade.
Yep.
Sticking with it. And then, it's such a backbone, I think, piano, just such a backbone of your life. So really, really cool.
Thank you.
So can we play it?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. So we're going to play the interlude Carolyn Horn right now, followed by Carolyn. We'll play them back to back on the show right now. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thanks for letting me play it.
Okay, so that was the interlude, Carolyn Horn and Carolyn on the album Daughter. Congratulations on the album.
Thank you.
And I've just learned so many cool things about you today.
You too.
Yeah, right? You learned goated today?
I learned goated.
Wow, great
using
term.
that nonsense. Goated is goated.
Goated is goated. But it's been really fun, like sitting with you and like hearing about all this because there's such a cool path that you've been on in your, I would say, short career, which sounds crazy because you've done so much. It's such a like you could celebrate so much, I think, what you've already accomplished. So this has been such a fun day for me. So thank you again for being here with me.
You've been you've been great at. I think it's really hard to hold space and interview the way that you are. So thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. No, I appreciate that, and I think I feed off your energy though. So you know, I think it's a two-way street.
You do.
So you have the tour coming up.
Yes.
That is going to be celebrating the album.
Yes.
So
yeah,
what is the tour called, and where can people kind of find out more about it?
Yes, the tour is called The Way Back Home Tour, which is a lyric taken from the outro, which is sort of it's thematic with the album, finding my way back home. Obviously, daughters related to home in a lot of ways. And this tour is special because it's in the round, and it's also in venues. So it's not in necessarily in nightclubs. We're going into venues, and in the round means going into the middle of the room, and so that you can feel the energy as close as possible to all the people.
Yeah.
I can be as close as possible to all the people.
Yeah.
And it's also my first bus tour, which is exciting for me because it also means I get to sleep at night, as the bus is moving.
Gonna be going crazy.
The Aura Ring is going to be lit. And that also means I get to bring some of my favorite artists on Yes, Yes, Yes. Muscolo will be coming with me, and he has a few cuts on the album, and he's incredible. Leshev will be coming with me. And then we have some various artists also joining on the tour. So it starts October 25th, and it goes until December 13th. So
cool.
we'll be also the joy of being on a tour bus for me, and which was really important to me when I was sat down with my team to plan this tour, is I come from Eugene, Oregon, and so I love B markets. I love going into Asheville and Durham and Jackson, Wyoming, and playing places that are not the major cities, because those are really my people. You'll find a lot of deadheads in those cities.
Oh yeah.
So I, on this tour, I get to hit a lot of those smaller markets that I really feel at home with.
Totally. Well, that's great. I mean, you're playing in LA.
Yes.
The Fonda.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm gonna go.
Yes.
Go.
Oh, good. Awesome.
So yeah, I'm
Good,
excited to see you there. I've only seen you once at Crossed when you played at Crossed last year.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. That was the first time I saw you, and
No
that was the only
way.
time I seen you. Yeah.
No way. Cool.
So those will be really fun, and knowing the context of everything. I mean, I can't wait to just listen to everything with the context that you share with me today.
Hell yeah.
So Daughter, we're celebrating it, the release of it, the stories behind it, your path, which is such a cool story, and I just can't wait to look back on all of this. So that's gonna be we're gonna end the show with one more song from the album. And speaking of talking about earlier, Portugal the Man being a huge a part of your life and your fanhood of music and a lot of things.
We gotta play Bittersweet.
We gotta play Bittersweet, right? And it's
Yes.
cool because you gave me the context of having given that song, and you first created an alternate version, and then they wanted more an LP Giobbi version.
Yeah,
so
they're
you
like,
did
give
that.
us a dance version.
Yeah.
That was also cool. They were, like, you be you spread your wings in this track.
Definitely. So let's play it.
Awesome.
So that's gonna be the end of the show.
Thank
the
you.
kind of the outro record. And thanks for sharing everything with me.
It's been an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. This is like a Mount Rushmore for me, so I appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. I'm Steve. Put you on radio. LP Giobbi. You're the goat.
Woohoo. Thank you. Goat it.
They did put me on.